Okay, let's go. I'd love to let you stay and talk, but then we'll be here till midnight, and then we'll have to join the dance later. What year is this? 2003. The 2003 Hyundai Accent. The best first car I ever owned. I came back from overseas, traveled a little bit around the world, came back, and my in-laws had bought this car about 17th hand from somebody. I paid about $5,000 for it, and I drove the wheels off this thing. I was running a premix company in Moy River, living in Howick, and I trekked up and down the N3 every day in this car. It used a lot of oil, but it was comfortable and it was fantastic. But I am not mechanically minded, and I stay away from spanners. But I knew how to check the oil. And things got lacquer crazy at work. And I just was head down working. Drive there, work. Drive home, busy with my baby. Drive there, work. Drive home. It was just crazy. And I forgot to check the oil. And one day on the way up to Moy River, we were on a potato farm way up in the inland from the Moy River. And the car started making a strange sound. And I was like, that doesn't sound right. I'm no mechanic, but it's not supposed to sound like that. And I got to work, and I opened the bonnet, and yes, you can see the heat haze coming off the bonnet. I was like, it's probably not supposed to be that hot. I thought I'll let it calm down a bit before I start opening anything in case it explodes on me. So at lunchtime, I went and checked, and I pulled the dipstick, and there was nothing. Nothing, not a drop, nothing, no oil. But we were on a farm, and we were pulling like long shifts, and I couldn't get oil. Couldn't get into town to go buy some oil. And by the time we finished, everything was closed. So I had to drive back to Howick, knowing that I had no oil in my car. And I was like, yo! And I'm like coasting, it's like all downhill. So he's just coasting to slowly nursed this thing home. I got home. I drove all the way there, all the way back, absolutely zero oil in the car. And it reminds me so much of how you guys work. Because sometimes you drive the car and then you get super busy and you forget to check the oil in the car. Now, my story was fine. I put oil in the car and it carried on going forever. But I never forgot to check the oil again because I got such a script that I was going to seize my engine on the highway. Now, if we're talking about oil in a car, it's important, but which one is more important to your driving experience? The steering wheel or the oil? I can still get to Moy River and back without any oil in my car, but I'm not going anywhere without a steering wheel. And today, this is what I want to chat to you guys about. The difference between macro minerals and trace minerals. Macro minerals, what are they? Calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, sodium. Those are the big ones. They're really important. If you bullet yourself there, animals die very quickly. Who in the room's lost an animal to milk fever? Yeah, like everyone, yeah? They die very quickly when these things don't work. This side, zinc, manganese, copper, etc. Let's just check the dipstick from time to time and make sure there's oil in the tank. If you're running low on these, you can put some more in. The cows don't die immediately. There's never been a deficiency of zinc that killed a cow in a week. Never. It doesn't happen. Who the hell am I? Alex Jenkins. Hi. I've been in minerals my whole life. I've run premix companies. I've imported products from overseas. I've worked with international companies, with local companies. I like working with small companies. I don't like working with huge corporates. I've never worked for a corporate. And what I do at the moment, Allied Nutrition, we bring products in from overseas. I have to make the science understandable and applicable to South Africa. If you buy feed from Nova, you are my client. If you buy feed from Meadow, you're my client. If you buy from SSK, you are my client. If you do your own premixing, if you buy premix from almost all of the premix companies, you are my client. We supply those guys who put it in your feed to supply you. That's where I fit into the industry. People say, Alex, why don't we see you on farm? Because I go from George to here to PE to East London, right through to Natal. Everywhere where there is grass, I work with the feed companies and the technical guys. But I absolutely love minerals because it's difficult to understand. It's a hell of a moving goalpost. And guys think that they have to get really complicated. And it's not that difficult. And that's what I want to work through with us today, is just introduce you to some of the things that I think you should do as farmers. Thank you for raising that cows need to eat grass. I absolutely 100% believe that cows need to eat grass. My first degree at Rhodes, I did ichthyology. So I studied fish, and now I'm in dairy. Such goes science. Part of the challenges of ichthyology, growing fish on a big scale, especially catfish, they're excellent protein. Did you know you can grow in 1 ton of water, 1 ton, a flow bin, you can grow 600 kilograms of catfish in 400 kilograms of water. It's incredible, like this writhing mass of fish. And that's the stocking rate that they work best at. It's incredible. But if you want to breed them, you've got to do something different, because the parents eat the fry immediately. The moment they hatch, they get eaten. Why? Why is cannibalism such a thing? Now, cows don't eat their young, of course, but cannibalism in fish is a major thing, because the baby fish is exactly the same makeup as the parent fish. And the parents are always looking for efficient ways to eat. So if we're looking for efficiency, we need to feed as close as possible to what the cow is to the cow. Now, cows are not made of grass, but they have this amazing thing called a rumen. And the rumen takes grass and turns it into bugs, microbes, yeah? You know, you're all in fermentation. You're all fermentation specialists. Because all those microbes, those millions of different microbes out of the rumen, if you take them all and you analyze them, that's microbial protein. If you analyze all of them, it's exactly the same protein as what makes a cow. It's incredible. The whole population, mang it all together and you get cow. It's the perfect protein. But grass is not the perfect thing, so sometimes we have to put a bit more calcium. Sometimes we need a bit more magnesium. Now, this is about balancing to get the best out of our animals. Okay, so let's start. We'll start with the macros. What's the concept behind feeding a dry cow? If we feed a dry cow, what are we trying to achieve when she calves down? What are we trying to get moving in the animal? We're trying to get the calcium moving, yeah? If it doesn't move, she gets milk fever, yeah? How the hell does that work? I always thought, oh, she's got calcium in her bone, so she just draws it out the bone. How does that work? I don't know. So I've started asking myself. I read a really interesting book by Adam Grant. It's called Think Again, and it's the art of questioning everything you know you know. And it's really, really good, because for years I've been specializing in transition cow stuff, but I've never known how this works. So the way a cow gets the minerals out of her bones, this is called a bone modeling unit. And on all of her long bones, she makes like a little, you see the little black things going over the top. That's a cover of cells on the bone. And like a little blister forms so that it all happens underneath, undercover. You don't want this stuff all being involved with muscle movement and whatever. So a little blister forms like this, and you get these things on the front end. You get osteoclasts. They're a type of white blood cell. And osteoclasts cut caves. Remember, clasts cut caves. These things dissolve the bone. All it does, it's a white blood cell, it sits on the bone, and it just goes acid onto, it just dumps hydrochloric acid onto the bone, and it dissolves the bone. And all those minerals start coming off. And if your osteoclasts are working, then you have calcium available for the animal. out of her bones, because that's where she stores calcium. But then they calve down, it all works, they're healthy, they get into lactation. Now we need to put it back. You can't just mine bones forever, or else your cow falls over and get rubber legs. So we've got to put it back. And here come the osteoblasts. Now the blasts, they build bridges. These are the guys that actually put the calcium back. And they have a very clever little thing inside that single cell where they pull minerals out of the blood, out of the muscles, and they convert it, and they deposit this like concrete stuff at the back. Now with any group of workers, some are really good, and some are bicky not so good. And every now and again, you'll get these three guys, a hormone comes along and it says, right, go, builders, off you go. And this one starts, and this one starts, and this one's still having coffee. And this one doesn't go straight, it jaws straight over that one. And it concretes it into the bone. And that thing then changes. Man, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. It's beautiful. When this one gets concreted into the bone, it starts growing fingers. It like grows these tendrils. Looks a bit like a nerve. And it turns into an osteocyte. And these long tendrils that come out, they can sense stress in the bone. And if the bone's stressing, the osteocytes come along. You see this one on the top here? These little tendrils, they come up and they stick through the top of the bone, and they give signals to these guys who are building. And if the bone is under a lot of stress, they say, put more, we need concrete here to make this thing strong. And the osteocytes make the osteoblasts build more bone. And incredibly, that's why we play sport at schools. If you stress a child's bones, they grow strong bones because of this. So it's really, really interesting. And we need this stuff to work in our cows, especially over transition. It's all hormonally controlled. So if we can get those hormones going, then we're in a good place. Where does it actually come from? Where does the calcium come from? This is what bone is made of, calcium phosphate. Can you see there's 3 calciums? This is like chemistry 101. PO4 times 2. There's 3 of those and 2 of those. The moment they come out the bone, when these things dump the acid on, it all dissolves out. This is positive, this is negative. So like a magnet, they stick together. And you get 3 calciums, 2 phosphoruses, 2 of these join with 2 of these, and you have 1 spare calcium. And that's how your blood calcium goes up. That's how it works. So you get calcium phosphate bound in the blood, but you've got an extra calcium in the bank, so then that goes to helping the cow out. So that's how cows actually mobilize their calcium. What should you do for calcium and phosphorus? What should you do? Please test your forages for macrominerals. If you've got dry cows grazing anything, please check your forages for macrominerals. You take a sample to a feed company, they stick it on the NIR, they will give you calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, sodium, potassium. They'll give you the macros. Most of the time they do it for free, so the price is right, at least. Check your forages for macros, because if you feed too much phosphorus, independent of calcium, your phosphorus will cause milk fever. If you don't feed enough calcium, you'll get milk fever. If you feed too much potassium, it'll bind magnesium, you'll get milk fever. If you don't feed enough magnesium, it'll stuff with your calcium, you'll get milk fever. It's really easy to get milk fever because these things, they all play together. But as your nutritionists, you go on farm and you go, oh, flip, I've got 27 cows in my steam up group, and they've all got milk fever. And your nutritionist goes, can I please measure something? No, we don't do that. We focus on eating grass. I said, belief, just check the grass. Make sure. Because some silages have got really high phosphorus. I've worked with farmers who are like, the one guy, 27% clinical milk fever. And for every clinical, there's 7 subclinical, and you lose about 70% of the money for subclinical. So you don't see it, but man, they don't produce. And he said, no, I'm feeding silage, and they stand on a kikuyu camp, so it's nice and firm, it's not muddy or anything, but I cut the kikuyu as short as possible so they don't graze it. Guess what you've done? So the silage was full of phosphorus, and the camp was full of phosphorus. And then he was adding a little bit more phosphorus because he thought they needed some, and he caused his milk fever. We just took all the phosphorus out, gave him some hay, and made him stand in the mud, and milk fever went away today. As of then, there was no milk fever. So us a belief, measure your forages. Measure your transition issues. Like fertility is key. It's what drives your businesses. You've got to get that. But if they're sick at calving, it's going to be pushed back. If we're trying to get a short season, and we want a 3-month season, make sure that they are really healthy when they land. And so check these things, test them, measure them, and then keep track of them. And then follow the recipe. If someone gives you a thing to feed, especially dry cows, it's like a ANC funeral going past. Follow the recipe. If somebody says, here's my dry cow feed, I've worked it so that you feed 2 kgs of this pellet per cow per day. Dry cow feeding is straight up maths. There's positive cations, negative anions. There's a lot of technical behind it. But if your nutritionist tells you feed 2 kgs, please feed 2 kgs. Don't feed 1.5, because the maths is not going to work. He's feeding this stuff, anionic salts, to beat what's in your ration. We just need, you've got lots of pluses coming out your ration, we're feeding some negatives, and we need to get more than them numerically. It's just a numbers thing. It's not a nutrition thing, it's maths. And if we say 2 kgs, please just feed 2 kgs. If you want to feed 1 kg, tell your nutritionist, I don't want to feed 2, I want to feed 1. He'll just put more minus in your meal so that you can feed 1. But I have it so often where we design a diet and then the oaks are like, no, that looks a bit steep. I'll just go 1.5. It should be fine. No, please don't. And a scoop is a scoop and a bag is a bag. But please put the bag on a scale, because if you assume there's 50 kilos in a bag and then the staff are a little bit tired and what have you, there'll be 30 kilos in the bag. So don't tell them to feed 10 bags. Tell them to feed so many kgs and actually weigh it, because then you follow the recipe, then the maths works. Okay. How do these things, macro minerals, how do they go from the feed into the cow? It's super simple. There's gradients that we work with. So chemical gradient or an electrical gradient. Say we have 17 on one side and 1 on the other side. Let's use the example of little Johnny wants to build a foofy slide. So he goes up the biggest honey locust tree in the garden, and he ties his rope 17 meters up. And then he runs across the garden and he ties it 1 meter off the bottom of the next tree. How fast is little Johnny's foofy slide going to cruise? He's going to go straight, whoop, pow, and snot nose at the end. He's going to move really quickly, right? If you've got lots of something on one side and a very little bit of something on the other side, the movement is super quick. Little Johnny doesn't have to work. Just has to hang on and take the hiding at the end, right? There's no effort involved here at all. After he's regrown his teeth, little Johnny decides, okay, I'll only go 5 meters up that tree and 2 here. So now this actually looks like a foofy slide I might want to use. Okay, it's a zzz. No effort, still moving. Things are still coming down the gradient. Okay? Then little Johnny's sister gets involved and goes, let's make it even safer. And he puts 6 and 6. Now, this is not going to work, right? If Johnny wants to get from one side to the other, can he just hang on? He's got to make some effort to get from one side to the other. Now we start with active transport. This is where the body now has to actually grab stuff and pull it in, and grab stuff and pull it in. And there's systems, there's proteins that do all of this stuff. Okay? And then we just get stupid, and now he goes backwards. So now little Johnny is not hanging, he must be on top, and he must now work his gut off to get from one side to the other, because it's really hard, and it's slow, and it takes a lot of effort to move up a gradient like this. This, if we're talking about your cows, very energy expensive. Okay, so we want to try and avoid this. Let's talk about magnesium. Back in the olden days. I've heard the, like, 1976, I was born in 1978. My son says I was born in the late 1900s. I'm like, oh, you little shit. Back in the late 1900s, Thomas and Potter, they wrote a fantastic paper where they wanted to figure out which part of the gut actually absorbs magnesium. So they took 6 sheep and they operated on these things, and they put a pipe in every single part of the digestive tract of 6 sheep. So they started with the dictatum. Then they went to the small intestine. Then they went to the acid stomach. Then they went to the omasum, the what do they call it, the book pence. And then they went to the rumen. And they took magnesium chloride, which is perfectly soluble in water, and they just injected through the tube straight into the large intestine. And then they just measured from blood, is there magnesium in the blood? Because if it's being absorbed in the big intestine, it's going to be in the blood. They did that for 3 or 4 days, measured it, nothing. Then they moved to the small intestine, so now the stuff's going small and large intestine. Did that for 3 days, nothing. Nothing, 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 nothing. Here, it all arrived in the blood within 1 hour from the rumen. The rumen is your only chance to get magnesium into your cow, in the rumen. We talk about rumen health. Rumen health is critical for your mineral absorption. Okay, so that's the first site of that. And it's got to be super soluble. You can't have a magnesium source that doesn't dissolve in water and then try and get it through the rumen, especially in spring where the grass is not staying there very long. Hey? It's cruising through. We were looking at manure pats with a farmers group, and the guy that was doing the talk, he takes his pen and he goes in and he picks up a ryegrass plant, a full plant. You could see all 3 leaves, the roots, and the 4th leaf that had been grazed, straight out of the manure of a spring cow. That thing you could plant it again and it would grow. It's incredible the speed that that thing's gone through the cow. So we need soluble magnesium up front. Okay. Magnesium and potassium are not friends. And how does this work? This is inside the gut, inside the rumen. This is the wall of the rumen, the muscle of the rumen. You want to get technical, it's called a syncytium. You can try to spell that. It's lots of vowels. You see all the positives here. Magnesium is a 2+. Potassium is a 1+. There's plus over there. Here it's minus. So we've got this potential difference, this electrical difference, making a really strong foofy slide. Everything just wants to leave the rumen. Okay? So our magnesium moves into the cow, lacquer. What happens if we don't get magnesium in a cow? What do you see? Staggers. Yeah, you see staggers. Okay? So this would be a staggers. Mid-lactation milk fevers. About 200 days in milk, maybe when they change to the bee herd and they start falling over, treat them with calcium and they stand straight up. It's not a calcium thing, it's a magnesium thing. It's this. The mid-lactation milk fever is this that I'm showing you now. Okay, when there is a lot of potassium, when there's lots and lots of potassium, where does potassium come from in our diets? Grass. Your grass has got very, very high potassiums in it, especially if you're putting lots of slurry, especially if you're using pig slurry. Then there's lots of potassium in the grass. I've seen some potassium levels of 7%, so it's incredibly high sometimes. What happens is the potassium, by metabolic magic, the potassium goes first. Okay, there's a sodium-potassium pump and it moves first. But now you've got lots of pluses this side and lots of pluses this side. So now our foofy slide is not so strong. It gets reduced. Just the electricity across that barrier. Okay? So now only a little bit of magnesium goes here. How do you fix it? You throw more pluses this side to get the foofy slide higher so that it moves. And then we throw magnesium into the diet and it's willing to come across. But how much, I hear you ask? We're putting magnesium sulfate in water. That's cool. We're adding magnesium oxide to our diets. That's cool. That's great. Add magnesium. That's great. Let's do some maths around this. Okay? At 1% potassium in your diet. So if I measure your grass and I know my meal, this is why measuring grass is so important. If I measure it and it's 1% potassium, this is what your animal needs. It needs 5.5 grams for maintenance, 0.02 grams for growth, 2.2 grams for lactation, nothing for pregnancy. The animal I used wasn't pregnant as early. So total requirement of this animal is only 6.7 grams. That's like a teaspoon and a half of magnesium. It's not much. Okay? Look what happens when we push the potassium to 3%. I've seen grass samples at 7% and 70% grass in our diet. So this number can get much bigger, but 3% is about normal. Nothing changes here. It needs 7.6 just to get past the potassium. You need 8. You need more than the cow needs just to get around the potassium in the diet. Your nutritionist needs to know this number, because if you're putting mag sulf in the water, is it 1 kilo per trough or 2 or 10 or like how much do we need to go here? This is the maths around macro minerals that we can really easily do this stuff. And I know our pivots are all different, etc. But let's look at it as a history of the farm, and we generally know that those pivots over there are low in potassium, but these ones are quite high in potassium. So let's change things that need to be adjusted as we go. All right, so we end up with more than double the requirement just if you go into a pasture with high potassiums. Okay. So what should you do? Everybody together. Test your forages for macrominerals. If we know the potassium level, we can do something about it. Sometimes the magnesium level's really high and we can haul whatever additives out of your diet because you've got that in the grass. Test that. Adjust for high potassium grass. If you've got really high potassiums, if your test is 4, 5, 6, 7%, I would really suggest you do something about it. And then report mid-lactation issues. I get lots of guys. It's like, everything's fine. And I ask, do you have milk fevers? Oh, yes, no, we've had 14 milk fevers so far. And I'm on a solidly, like a single season farm. They all calve down in July, August. And we're like in February. And the guys are going, yeah, no, we've got a few lactation, like milk fevers at the moment. The people on your farm can't differentiate milk fever from milk fever if you just call it milk fever. If it's a mid-lactation milk fever, the response is totally different to an early cow milk fever. So just be clear about that and measure this stuff. If you've got lots of them, what causes it? We've got our A herd and our B herd. A herd, lots of meal, lots of maize, whatever it is. So the grass percentage in the diet is low and the meal is high. Then they change to the B herd. What happens? The meal drops and the grass takes up the balance. So now that little bit of potassium that you've had in the grass is now more important. And then it starts messing with your magnesium. Okay. If we're looking at edema, this is a really bad edema, but sodium, this is caused by too much sodium in the diet. Causes them to retain water in their body. We can get salt in the diet. We add salt to diets all the time. There's a sodium requirement, but there's also salt in the water. I've fed cows in the Western Cape where the sodium in the water was 8 times more than the animal's requirement for sodium, just coming out the water, and nobody had checked the water. So they were looking at the feed going, hey, nutritionist, what's going on? Let's check the water. You could taste the salt in the water. It was brackish. And that happened during a drought. Pastures near the ocean. There was some work done in New Zealand that showed that pastures within 15 k's of the ocean actually had significantly higher sodium levels than inland pastures. Okay? And then sodium bicarb as well. We use it as a buffer. Sodium. You can actually overdose your cows on sodium. You can have too much sodium. Okay. So, sodium issues are also made worse by high potassium levels. So all these things play together. So just understanding. So what should you do? Again, test your forages for macrominerals, yes. Adjust the ration salt content. If you've got high sodium in your water, we can use it. Let's not put it in the feed. Let's use it out the water. If you're wanting to buffer cows in summer, sodium bicarb brings sodium to the diet. It's an effective buffer. Acid buff, this is not like a whole story on acid buff, but it doesn't have any sodium in it. It's a calcium magnesium source. It's out of algae. It's not coral. We're not killing the world. It's algae. It grows. And it's got lots of calcium, soluble, lots of magnesium, soluble, no sodium. It's a rumen available source of minerals. So that's that. Okay, macrominerals, done. Trace minerals. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, zinc is this and zinc is that. I just got some cool stuff for you to highlight what it is. Okay. Trace minerals are really important. You don't get this without that. Yeah? And if that's backfiring, then this doesn't happen. Okay. This is where your efficiency comes from. If you're short on these things, I'm not short as in I want to sell you organics, so you must buy my organics or else you're short. No. If the animals are deficient, it will start backfiring. You can ride this a long time. Like, to be honest, you can ride this a while. It's not a problem. But if you see your fertility numbers going off, if you see your animals looking really ratty when they should be looking quite nice, if they've got this reddish sheen to them when they should be black, this is all symptoms that your minerals might not be where they are. Okay? Zinc. Have you seen this metabolic pathways by Roche? I think, yes, it's magnificent. It's every single metabolic pathway in the body. And I've highlighted for you where zinc is involved. There. Zinc is flipping everywhere. Okay? If you need zinc, when in doubt, just increase your zinc levels. Seriously, it'll help. Almost to a fault. I mean, we've seen experiences now with foot and mouth. Guys are going 3x on zinc. They're feeding their normal zinc levels and they're doubling requirement from organics. And like I don't know, nobody's doing trials on this stuff, but the boere mensen say, oh no, it's great, works perfectly. I don't know what we're measuring it against, but you can push these levels a lot. You can do whatever you want with zinc, honestly, but feed zinc. I want to show you something. So we were talking about active transport, like bringing minerals into the gut. When you think of protein, proteins are these transporters that move stuff in and out of the gut. Think of a protein not as just a protein like NPN or soya. The proteins in an animal are machines. And this is calcium. So this is bringing calcium from outside and dropping it off. Check how complicated this machine is. Check that. It takes ATP and it's pulling it, and that whole structure is moving. Every time it gets ATP, it gets some energy, and it changes the whole shape. Then it uses it up and it goes back, and it changes and it uses. And that's how calcium gets pulled into your animals like that. Zinc is critical for the shape of that machine. Have you ever seen a bus driving down the road and the front wheels are pointing straight and the back wheels are pointing sideways and the thing's going like crabbing down the road? Because stuff's not in alignment. Zinc works out the alignment of these proteins and makes sure that they work properly. If you're low on zinc during summer, this is a reason why our milk drops during summer. Heat stress affects the shape of your proteins. So increasing your zinc during summer is a good thing because it helps these proteins get back to the shape they should be. Okay, this is a really cool thing. Just remember the term zinc sparks and then go look up his TED talk. It's really cool. These guys, this is an egg cell. This is a sperm cell that's just gotten under the what's it, the skin. It's just, okay, so now we're going to watch fertilization happen. They've tagged all the zinc molecules in bright pink so we can actually see what's going on with the zinc. So there's not a lot of zinc in the egg, a lot of zinc in the sperm, right? At the moment of fertilization, check the egg, pulls in 100x the amount of zinc and then kicks it all out. At that point, all the DNA separates, multiplies, and rejoins. And it's incredible. They say a chromosome. If you took a chromosome out of the DNA and you made the DNA as thick as a strand of hair, you would have a dreadlock the size of a car. And in that, it untangles that whole thing, duplicates it, and puts it all back together. It's flippin' magic. It is incredible. And it's all driven by zinc. So why did they do this? Because when parents who can't have kids go for in vitro fertilization, what do? They give the mum lots of hormones, and she super ovulates. So she makes lots of eggs. They take the eggs out, they take the man's sperm, and they do in vitro fertilization. Yeah? So they've got a group of eggs, bathe them in sperm, hope like hell that some of them are fertile, and then they put them back in the mum. They came to you for one child, and then they end up like Octomum, who's got 8 babies. It's not ideal for a young family to have 8 children at once. It's kind of expensive. So what they were trying to do was measure a way to see whether the things were pregnant or not, whether fertilization had happened. So this is like a real-time thing. This is a Petri dish of 9 eggs. Did you see the flashes? Done. Now we can see by the intensity of the flash of zinc. That's why it's called a zinc spark. They took it in, they kicked it out. As it comes out, you get this flash around the cell. That's a blastocyst, that's a blastocyst. Nothing happened there, nothing happened there. And these ones kind of, but didn't really work. So if we want this family to have a baby, we take that one and we put them in the mum. And she might have twins, but she might probably only have a single. That's why they did the work. And it's flippin' cool, man. It's really cool. So if we're wanting to get our animals pregnant early on in lactation, just push the zinc levels up a little bit. It helps. Manganese. Manganese is the pink mineral. Manganese is all about fertility. Yeah? And because we're talking about girls, that's not a boob, don't worry. It's a corpus luteum. Yeah? An ovary with a corpus luteum on the top of it. If I talk to you about fertility, what mineral immediately comes to mind? Not manganese. Everyone's selenium, right? There is 9 times more selenium. There is 9 times more manganese in the corpus luteum than there is selenium. So if your manganese levels are low, this little structure there controls all the hormones that make sure that your pregnancy starts. At that very first point of fertilization, moving down, implanting in the uterus, all of that's controlled by hormones. And this little structure that's fraught full of manganese is controlling all those hormones. Okay, so for reproduction, hormones, calcium metabolism, joints, tendons, manganese is really important. Copper. Copper is a story of bulldozers and illegal residents. So here we have the gut. All of the blood that feeds the gut, it goes from the gut, the whole length of the gut goes to the liver. Copper, the bloody skeleton, because it goes to the liver and it stays. It builds a shack. And you know when there's one shack, there's always more shacks, right? So then copper builds up and builds up and builds up and builds up. And it starts getting toxic. If any of you have watched a location grow, or a shack town around Durban, those things have exploded. Like, it's not healthy for an area, having all these shacks and all the rubbish coming out of them and all of that stuff. And the liver then reaches tipping point, like every good municipality does, and it sends in the bulldozers. And it goes near Futsal, and it kicks all the copper out. And so, over a time, you will build copper up in the liver. Over 2 years, you will build copper up when you're rearing your animals on a high copper feed. Then a big stress event like maybe having her first calf comes along, and then she dies. Her blood goes black and she dies. Why does her blood go black? Because this is hemoglobin. It's a crazy molecule with a donut shape. In the middle goes oxygen. That's where oxygen lives, in a hemoglobin molecule. Copper comes and lives in the middle of that, and the animal can't carry oxygen. That's why the blood goes black. It just doesn't go black, it goes very dark, but then die bene is innig. And that's how copper works. So just make sure that your copper levels, and you do this by, you can stick a needle in the liver and measure your copper levels. Liver biopsy. Just take a liver biopsy. If you see your levels climbing, just reduce your copper. If your levels are very high already, I'm talking really 2 or 3 times higher than they should be, there are some nutritional interventions you can do to actually bring it down, to bind the copper out. But, oh, yeah, that takes a very delicate finger on the pulse on what's going on. You feed molybdenum and other stuff and sulfur, and it's a challenge. Let's talk about selenium. Selenium is the one mineral that everybody knows about. This is a white blood cell. White blood cells do their job by phagocytosis. So they come along and they engulf a bacteria like that. They engulf it. How do they kill it? Just like our cells that get it out the bone, they just spray it with hydrogen peroxide. That's what the yellow stuff is, it's hydrogen peroxide. And they just do that, and you know when you put hydrogen peroxide down the drain to clear it, it all bubbles like hell and what have you. That's it breaking apart all the fats and the proteins. So that's exactly what happens. It takes the bacteria, breaks it all up, and then this little bubble here, it brings it in, kills it, and then pushes it out and spits it out again. But now you've got all this crap floating around the blood, and that's no bueno. You don't want this stuff in your blood because it's junk. It's LPS, it's bacterial protein, it's leftover stuff. So we need a sponge to clean this stuff up so that we don't have any of this rubbish lying around. To completely mix my metaphors. This is the junk that's lying around, and we need to crush all of it and get it out the way. So we need a vehicle. It's called, ROS is your reactive oxygen species. You may have heard of pro-oxidants or reactive oxygen species or whatever. The vehicle is called GPX, glutathione peroxidase. It's the thing that comes and cleans up all of this. As a molecule, GPX has got 4 wheels, and they are selenium, 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 and selenium. If I have 3 wheels, can I drive my car? Well, a monster truck you can, but a normal car needs 4 wheels, right? So if we want GPX to work, we do selenium. This is why we measure selenium in our bloods, but we don't actually measure GPX. It's called a referred measurement. We can measure selenium and then decide how much GPX is there. But where you measure it is totally different. If it's in the milk, if it's in the blood, if it's in the liver, these things all result in a different interpretation. Okay, chromium is our stress mineral. Chromium's crazy because an animal under stress uses 1 kilo of glucose every 12 hours. What does that equal? That's 2 kilos of glucose every day. How much millis is in 2 kilos of glucose? About 3.2 kgs of millis, just to this, just to stress. So those 5 kilos of millis that you're feeding to your animals, in summer, during hectic heat stress, 3 of them go to just keeping the animal on her feet. And then only the other 2. It's another reason why milk drops. Okay, so trace minerals, what should I do? The most important thing to do with your trace minerals is measure what you care about. And I promise you, you don't care about the amount of zinc in an animal's liver. You don't. You care about her production, her butterfat, her efficiency, her fertility. That's the stuff that pays your bills. So measure the production traits. I see guys getting tangled, and they have fights, and I've got to come in and mediate against the feed company and the premix and the farmer and the manager. Everyone's trying to go, no, but the zinc has dropped 5 points with your company and it's higher with the other company. Hey, guys, has the milk changed? No. Has the fertility changed? No. Is it within range? Yes. Okay, cool. What are we fighting about? Yes, we can measure. We can do herd testing, but it is vastly more important to measure the stuff you actually care about. When you're testing, herd testing, what's a representative sample for 1,600 cows? How many is that? Liver biopsy is like $1,700 a piece, hey? So what are you going to do, 200 cows? No one's got budget for that. You're going to do 10 cows? Probably. I've got farms, take 10 cows, take all the little biopsies, put them all in one test tube, and send it to the lab, because it's $1,700 a test, you know. Yeah, but now I get one number. Like one number that represents all 1,600 animals. That can't work. So when you do herd testing, if you're going to do it, just do it properly, so that at least we can say, of these 10, they're all bunched together and they're all high. Or all 10 of them are spread out like hell. Why are they all spread out, or why are they all together? The spread of these things is actually as important as the level of them. So if you're doing herd testing, give me a shout. I've got a lot of experience with this and interpreting and just helping oaks do it, please. Don't just chase numbers. Grade 3 maths is like less than or more than a zinc level. You know, minimum zinc of 120. I've got herds doing 38 liters where their zinc has sat for 5 years at 70 out of 120. They're clinically short of zinc. No, they're not. They're all fertile. They're cracking on. It's just that farm. And we've thrown loads of organics and loads of extra zinc. Nothing moves. It's just that farm. And it's okay. It's okay. Just consider the whole picture. So that is my whole thing. For macros, measure your macro minerals in your forages. And for trace elements, plan what you care about, act, make a change. If you're going to increase your zinc, make the change. Register with everybody. We made the change on this day to achieve these numbers. And then at the end of the season, make sure you actually got there. Because if you didn't, don't do it again. If you did, keep doing it and do it every time. So plan, act, and review. Guys, if you want the information in this slide, there's a QR code. Just fill out your details on the Google form, and I will send it to you. I'll also put this, this form, Henri, if you can email it to everyone. Then I won't send you my whole presentation, but I'll send you the information, because that's actually what you want. And yeah, I've been Alex. Thank you so much for your time. We might have time for one question. Do we? No, Henri, don't go away. It'll stop them asking questions if you're standing here. And I'll get off easy. Yeah.
How often do you test your pastures? So, because it's obviously...
Yeah, it changes a lot during the seasons. So I would like to see a spring picture, a summer picture, an autumn and a winter picture on a farm. So 4 times a year, and yes, you're going to have a lot of variation, but it's about painting a picture rather than exact numbers all the time. So I would go 4 times a year. Yeah, and all of the pastures. And most of the feed companies will be able to do this for you. So yeah. Okay. Thank you, guys. I'm going to be around a little bit after at lunch, so please come and give me a shout. Thanks, Henri.